Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to quickly introduce myself and my groupmates. Hi, I am Micaela Lumen, together with my groupmates Ariel J. Atienza, Loreline Kazin, Jean Juarez, and Venus Junella. We are looking forward to discuss with you our topic for today. Our goal for today's discussion is to help you understand what is court setting, the role and functions of social worker in a court setting, and lastly, the average salary of a forensic social worker. So now, let's get started.
Before we start discussing what is court setting, I have one trivia about court. So, do you know that the word court is meant as an enclosed place and also denotes the chamber, whole building, or other places where judicial proceedings are being held? So, now let's go on to the discussion about what is court setting. So, court setting is also called as court law or hukuman sa Tagalog. Na alam ko, may idea na tayo what is court dahil na-encounter na natin ito, yung word na to, ever since we are child. So, dito, hinahatulan ang mga nagkakasala or lumalabag sa batas, wherein person having judicial authority to hear and resolve disputes in civil, criminal, or military question. So, let's discuss the question na kapag nagtatrabaho ka ba sa court, does that mean ay lawyer ka na or judge ka na? The answer is hindi po. Hindi lahat na nagtatrabaho sa court ay isa lang ang ibig sabihin na yon na lawyer or judge na. Because there is also a social worker who are working on court setting, and they are called as forensic social worker or court social worker, and sometimes they are called as forensic social worker. So, sila yung mga social worker na nag-a-apply ng social work principles and expertise to law-related issues and litigations. So, the work of the forensic social worker can have a direct impact on individuals involved in criminal and civil legal cases. So, if you want to also study law but due to some situation ay mas pinili mo na lang yung social work, so I think working on court setting is the best thing for you. And as our report goes on, you'll understand a lot what are the roles and function of a forensic social worker. So, social worker on court setting, they are interviewing individuals or the accused person. So, ang trabaho pala ng isang court social worker is they are immediately interviewing individuals after the court has asked for a report and completing the medical mandate where significant medical issues have been highlighted. And they are also immediately interviewing individuals after the court has passed a custodial sentence or remand. So, the second one is forwarding relevant information to the receiving prison in the event of custodial sentence. So, ayun na nga. Yung court social worker din pala, yung mga nagbibigay ng information, including na dito yung mga details ng isang individual who may pose a risk to harm themselves or the others. So, the third one is court social workers are representing the local authority criminal justice social work services in the court setting. So, sila din pala yung mga nagre-represent ng criminal justice social work services, including where in appropriate users group liaising or establishing relationship with other professional group. So, the fourth one is, court social workers are also helping to divert persons suffering from mental disorder who may be at risk. So, they are also helping people na vulnerable due to mental health disorder na maaaring maging banta sa sarili nila if from a custodial remand to either hospital like local medical, forensic, and psychiatric services or appropriate bail accommodation were available for assessment. So, some of the primary activities of social worker in court setting and include the victim advocacy. So, I just add a little bit explanation about this because it will discuss later and mas mapapalawak pa. So, court social worker is sila din yung mga nag-offer ng emotional support for the victims wherein they assist the victims. They are not just providing information on option, but also they help the victims process decisions, provide resources, and support survivors through system. So the second one is provide testimony and research for criminal and civil court cases. As what I said earlier, they are immediately interviewing individuals to gather information. So they are also working with probation and parole, and also preparing children to testify in court. So they may collaborate with adult and juvenile criminal justice system, and it include the child custody issues involving divorce, child abuse, parental right terminations, or separation. So they are also providing mental health services to inmates and prisoners. They are preparing them in case they are returning to their communities. So, trabaho din nila na ihanda ang isang individuals na mga nakulong, so they are helping prisoners na maging handa sa malaking pagbabago na kakaharapin nila oras na sila ay nakalayo or nakalabas na. So, including na din dito kung paano sila makakasalamuha sa mga tao sa paligid nila and to provide a better environment for them. So, for further discussion about our topic, may I call Miss Atienza to continue and provide information about the roles and functions of social worker in court setting.
Of course, social worker have the roles when it comes to court setting. Isa sa mga role ng social worker is to provide assistance or support to children sa korte when they testify for something. Like for example, sa isang kaso mayroong child na involved wherein that child need to testify or need yung mga nalalaman or statement niya in a specific matter related sa case. So the social worker will guide and syempre andun siya mismo during that moment to ensure the child's safety at para ma-assure na din sa bata na safe siya. Next is work with families. Dito naman, hindi naman kasi lahat ng kaso, isang individual lang yung involved. Pwede ding as a whole family. Tinutulungan nila yung pamilya kung paano ma-resolve yung problem related sa kaso or issue nila. Nagpro-provide din sila ng assistance na kinakailangan ng family. The third one is to provide mental health to inmates and prisoners preparing to return to their communities. So sa kulungan or selda, maraming inmates or prisoners nga. May possibility na ang isang inmate na nasa loob ng kulungan na makaranas ng mental related issues. Yung mga social workers, they also serves as their therapists to avoid that to happen and to ensure that they are all mentally stable, especially those who were ready to return to their communities. They are guided morally to become a good person. Custody and guardianship recommendation. Isa ang social workers sa humahawak at nag-handle ng case when it comes to child custody and guardian recommendation. Inaalam nila kung anong klase yung environment ng bata, kung nakakaranas ba siya ng abuse or anything na nakakasakit sa kanya, and kung paano siya tinatrato ng parent or guardian niya. In that scenario, maaaring mamili kung yung father or mother or other relatives ng child kung kanino ibibigay yung rights for custody ng bata kung saan they are assured na safe yung bata. Mediation or parent coordination. Social workers do help with parent coordinations too. Parent coordination is a service for couples who experience parenting issues due to different reasons. Isa sa mga example is pag ang mag-asawa, they decided na mag-separate na. Hindi naman lahat nagkakasundo once na maghiwalay na yung mag-asawa. May times na yung mother ayaw niya makita ng anak niya yung father nito kahit willing yung father. Kahit wala na sila nung asawa niya, still he wants to stay intact with the child. Ang role ng worker is to help them to decide alternatives na parehas nilang makakasama yung anak nila. Like maghahati sila ng araw every week and they provide their children financially, mga ganun. Pati na din yung mga events na gusto nilang kasama yung anak nila like Christmas, birthdays, and more. The sixth one is help or interacts with neglect and abused people. Social workers help and interact with those people who are abused and neglected by their relatives. They help them to cope up with their traumatic experience from the past. Kasi 'di ba may instances na nagkakaroon sila ng trauma sa pang-aabuso sa kanila. So as a social worker, trabaho nilang pag-aanin at mag-gain yung trust ng victims para malaman nila yung pangyayari at makapagbigay ng effective solutions para matulungan ng mga ito at matulungan sila sa kasong maaari nilang i-file once na ma-assess or ma-analyze nila ang pangyayari. Works with juveniles. Isa sa mga common na nai-encounter ng social worker is the juveniles or the youth. Some juveniles are abused or involved in some crimes. Since they are minors, they can't be sent to jail. The DSWD will held accountable for their custody until they reach 18. Sila muna ang mangangalaga sa mga bata at kukupkop as well as guiding them morally. That ends my part. Miss Jonella Venus will continue the lesson.
Thank you, Ms. Atienza. Conduct conference with witnesses and victims, solicitors, and prosecutors. Social workers deals with everyone who's involved in a particular criminal case. They conduct conferences with them to be fully aware of the current status of the case and for their client to be prepared for court hearings and criminal justice processes. By this, they will be able to determine what theory or methodology they will take to handle their client within the court setting. Social workers also serves or function as a therapist to prisoners. By working with the criminal justice system or in a court setting, social workers in prison provide a critical resource for inmates, helping address key issues in behavioral health and care management. Ang mga social worker ay hindi lang nananatiling social workers sa kanilang napiling field setting. Halimbawa na lang pag sila ay nasa court setting, they became a therapist to suspects, victims, and prisoners of the case or situation where they are working with. Social workers also provide a forensic evaluation. Let me first define what is forensics is all about. Forensics, generally speaking, is a scientific knowledge meant to be applied in court. Ito yung mga scientificong pag-aaral o kaalaman na ginagamit sa mga legal circumstances at particular na sa mga scientific analysis of physical evidence in a crime scene. Forensic social workers are responsible for providing diagnosis, treatment, and recommendations for the criminal and juvenile justice populations and taking part in the process of screening, evaluating, and training law enforcement and other criminal justice personnel. Law enforcement. So, law enforcement, terminology na kadalasan nating naririnig sa mga kapulisan. Pero ang law enforcement is one of the function roles of social worker in a court setting, which is for them to provide services to community residents such as crisis intervention, mediation, and referrals. Law enforcement officers are tasked with hearing and investigating reports of crime that happens in their jurisdiction. These officers investigate crimes by gathering and protecting evidence, making arrests and providing testimony during court process, and conducting follow-up investigation as needed. Helps client find and develop coping strengths. Criminal justice social workers often provide their clients with emotional support, guidance in navigating the court legal systems, connection to relevant resources, housing application assistance, and individual and policy advocacy. Clients in a court setting are more than difficult to handle than the clients from another field setting because people in court tend to be hopeless due to their situation. So social workers need to take part in this coping process for their clients. Probation, parole. Social workers in the court setting are involved in probation and parole, whose role and function are to identify and supervise offenders who are eligible for conditional release from prison before they have completed their sentences. To earn parole, prisoners must obey prison rules, perform prison jobs well, and show progress in rehabilitation and therapy programs. The probation officers are responsible for monitoring those offenders who will be placed on probation as an alternative to jail time. Lastly is cooperates with members of the legal system such as lawyers, judges, and juries to understand the case. For social workers to perform the above-mentioned forensic roles and function within the court setting, they must cooperate with the members of the legal system. ang mga social workers sa korte ay mas magiging maalam sa pamamagitan ng iba pang kaalaman na maibibigay ng ibang profession na mas dalubhasa sa setting na ito. This situation is also referred to as an interprofessional collaboration in the social work profession. It is when more than two or more professionals come together to achieve a common goal. And now, I will call Ms. Juarez to discuss the last part of our topic, which is the Philippine rate salary of the social workers in the court setting.
Here is the average salary per year for social work in court setting. Dito sa Pilipinas, we have two positions and the average salary per year is estimated 357,576 and for months we have 29,798 plus 13th month pay plus bonus. So next is hourly rate is 171 per hour. So ang bonus is for nagtatrabaho lamang sa public cause the 13th month pay is required and nasa batas siya. So, it depends on private kung magbibigay sila ng bonus sa kanilang empleyado or hindi. For the entry level, we have 266,280 per year and 22,190 per month. And for the senior level, we have 457,800 and for months, we have 38,150.